Hey everybody, I'm Clay Norton,
And I'm Alan Moret.
and we're the Acme Math Guys, and we're back for the 2024 wishing you a very mathematical Christmas video that we've done the past couple of years. And Alan, we have a brain teaser for us today.
We do. It's interesting. This year is the first year that they have had a 12-team playoff, and we were wondering, well, how many different ways could we have had a bracket set up to incorporate all the 135 possible teams that were eligible for it? Now, the bracket is set up as we have 4 byes for the 12 teams, 4 byes, 4 first-round byes, and we have 8 teams that will play first-round games leading into the 4 winners playing the 4 teams that received the byes. Now, of these byes, it wasn't just the top 4 teams in the country getting the byes. The 4 byes came specifically from conference champions and then a group of 5 highest ranked team. And to determine the number of ways to come up with the byes, we used a combination. And the combination is that we had 5 teams to choose from, with 4 of those teams getting the bye. And doing the arithmetic with 5 factorial over 4 factorial, we ended up with 5 as the answer there.
All right, so there's 5 different ways. So 5 teams are getting automatic bids. Now, we're not talking about byes right now, but we're talking about teams that get automatic bids. So there's 5 teams that get automatic bids, but we are going to talk about those. How many different ways could those 4 get a bye? And that came out to be 5 different ways. Well, where did we get that? Well, that came from our 5 groups. And our 5 groups consist of the SEC, 16 teams, the Big Ten, 18 teams, the Big 12, which has 16 teams, the ACC, which has 18 teams, and then all other teams that's not part of this top 4 conferences was 67. That's where we have the 135 eligible football teams that are playing, FBS football?
Yes,
okay.
FBS.
All right, so the committee had to, somebody figured all this up. Not like we did, maybe, I don't know. But this was sort of the idea behind what they were doing. So out of this, of these, 1 team per the 5 groups was going to get an automatic bid and a bye. But only 4 teams get a bye, Coach Moret.
That is correct. So the ways we figured out for the first round is the first scenario was if the 4 conference champions were the 4 teams that got the byes, which would probably happen frequently. But you had the 16 SEC teams, the 18 Big Ten teams, the 16 Big 12 teams, and the 18 ACC teams. So when you multiply those possible teams together, you get 82,944. Now, not going through all the arithmetic for the rest of it, the next pairing assumed that the ACC did not get an automatic bye. The next scenario was we were assuming that the Big 12 did not get an automatic bye. The next pairing was if the Big 10 did not get an automatic bye. And finally, which will never happen, is assuming that the SEC will never get an automatic bye. Now, it just so happened this year that Group 4, number 4 was the scenario that worked out this year where the ACC did not get that automatic bye.
That's right. But they did get the automatic bid, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So to figure this part of the math right here, we have to add all of this up. So what happens is, this scenario here, when we combine all of this, we get 1,396,224,000 different ways, all of the conferences, with all of this, what we just talked about, how 4 groups of 5 to get an automatic bid. That's, Alan, that's a number within itself.
Yeah, it's amazing that just choosing 4 teams
out of
with
5.
that restriction was going to be so high. Now, past this, we have to think about, all right, how do we handle this first round scenario? Well, the first round scenario, you had to consider that there were 135 total teams that were eligible to begin with. Now, you take out the 4 teams that got the automatic bid, and then got the bye, and then the one other team that got the automatic bid. There were 130 other teams remaining for the 7
First round
position.
slots. Yeah.
Yes. And doing the combination arithmetic here, we get 186,278,632,800.
Now, we're doing this without putting actual seedings. Now, we know on the back end of this, Oregon's the number one seed.
Yes.
And, the 2, 3, and 4 got automatic buys. And then whoever was that fifth seed automatic bid came from this group, as you said, group 2.
And one other thing that was thrown into here is you had to consider that bad case of kryptonite hit Starkville this year, and Mississippi State was not one of the automatic bids to make it in.
Hell State. So, but anyway, so what happens is once we figure this 7 remaining teams, even though we have 8 first round playoff spots, 7 of the teams were chosen out of the 130 remaining, as Alan just talked about. So to figure out this part of the scenario, remember we got 3 ideas. 12-team playoff bracket, 4 buys, 8 first round, automatic bids, which we did here. But now we have to look at the remaining at-large bids. So this combination here, after finding this remaining 7 out of the 130 teams, you multiply that times the original 135 that we were dealing with, we get 25,137,620,428,000 different ways the first 8-team playoff going into the 4 automatic bid.
Yeah.
So which would we call the second round?
Yes. Now, the thing that we were hung up on for a few days trying to
3 days
determine
working
all
this
the
out, y'all.
math was how to handle the case where you had to determine, okay, we've got the 8 teams selected for the first round. Now, how many different ways can we have those pairings up for first round? And again, this is taking out of consideration home field advantage. But you had 8 teams that you could choose 2 from for the first game. 6 teams that and yes, and the arithmetic led to 28 different ways that you could come up with that first game, again, knowing that those were the 8 teams that were going to be in it. Past that, you had 2 teams out, so there were 6 remaining teams, then 4 remaining teams, and then 2 remaining teams. Divided that out by 4 factorial, that left us with 105 ways that the first round could be drawn up, knowing the 8 teams that were going to be playing in that round.
And all of this is combinations, and that's what you're looking at. How many different ways could the total playoff bracket be made?
Yes.
So there's 3 scenarios here, or 3 criteria that we have to consider. We have to consider the possible combinations of 4 teams out of 5 getting a bye. That was 1,396,224. Then we had to look at, well, what was the idea here of how many remaining teams could get those 8 first-round slots, given that one of those 8 would be a automatic bid. Well, that gave us our 25 trillion number right here. And then how many different possible combinations could we do the first round of 8 teams? And that was 105. So mathematically, to wrap all this up and put it into something uncomprehensible, because this number, Alan, gets big, when we multiply these 3 numbers out, we get this number right here. And this is the number, y'all, of how many possible bracket scenarios
You
could have
have
been made.
3 sextillion,
685 quintrillion,
573 quadrillion,
156 trillion,
35 billion,
913 million.
600,000.
And if you want to write this number out, let's bring this up to everybody.
Yes.
If you want to, that's what that number looks like if you write it out.
And this just happened to be Clay Norton's basketball number when he played for Ripley High School. And from this, doing arithmetic, you had a better chance of winning the lottery 2 consecutive times than predicting the correct bracket.
And if you want to know how this number sort of gets unimaginable, 36 trillion, y'all, 36 trillion is where our national debt is right now. So this just jumps it up another 9 digits.
Thank you very much for staying with us
Yes.
through this video.
I mean, we had a lot of fun doing this. We racked our brains for the last 3 days on trying to get this done. But we, as always, want to wish you a very mathematical Christmas. We hope you have a really good one, and we'll do this again next year as well. So I'm Clay Norton.
I'm Alan Moret.
And we're the Acme Math Guys, and this has been brought to you from the Acme Math Lab, the Acme Math Board. And, you know, not everybody can do this, but
We can.
we can because
we
Acme
are
Math guys,
genius.
genius. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.